How many what? How many people? How many people are in them right now? Oh, well, when we were in Apple Valley, they thought they were flying saucers because we had them all over the place. We had big ones and little ones flying all over, and they uh, they uh, they saw us. Well, there are other like magnetism is the mother and father of electricity and electromagnetics and anti-gravity. They go on down. So there's many different ways. Our government we live in Las Vegas. We're just 100 miles from Area 51. And we go out in that vicinity every once in a while. And we see what they're operating. And they're operating some very exotic craft. And they look like spaceships. And they operate somewhat like spaceships. But they're not true spaceships because they're operating on electromagnetism or anti-gravity. And they bank with maneuvers and stuff like this, and that's not a spaceship. Our ships that we built and our ships that are now waiting in the wings to come out are magnetic in nature. They are instantaneous. They can go from one point to the other instantly with no time. They go in and out of time. And yes, sir. Mhm. Well, actually, along with in what I said earlier about everything is now, everything is happening as we speak right now. The past and the future don't exist. Right now, as you sit in this room because you've taken your time to come here and listen to what I have to say, you are collectively raising the consciousness. And there's people like me that go around and talk like this that are also stimulating their own conscious awareness. We're provoking thought to what is this guy talking about? Did he do this? Didn't he do this? And then they have to get into themselves, and that's where it's at. It's within us. It's not out here, and if we look out here for something, we're never going to find it. We have to get inside and work from the inside out to get anywhere. Yes, sir.
Go into some detail about the crafts that you work with Carr and the relationship between their methods of levitation and propulsion and the beam that you discussed? Could you go into the details of that technology and the technology you're working on today?
Okay. Um, well, we just launched another rocket into space at the cost of millions of dollars with fuel that contaminates the air, costs taxpayers a lot of money, makes a lot of noise, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that is one technology, rocket power, which is forcing against nature. It takes a tremendous amount of power to force yourself against nature. And this is another power. This is magnetic in nature. These are two magnets opposing. I'm not doing anything but trying to put them together. Can't do it. Can't do it. And that's the power. In between here is what some equate to the 0 point. There is the power of the whole universe. And this power is what we use to operate our craft. It's just magnetism, pure magnetism. I think I mentioned about going to General Motors. Did I mention that upstairs? Did anybody hear that? Okay, we went to General Motors, and we put a 6-inch levitating device on their desk. Said, we want you guys to build these. We don't have the money to build them, and we want to get the wheel from off the ground going this way, which is tearing up everything, and you got cement and concrete and asphalt, and we want to put it this way and then get it up off the ground so that we can have a garden again instead of this asphalt jungle. And they had their engineers there. They inspected it. They looked at it. They tested it. Yeah, this thing is doing something. And we said, well, that's what we want to do. We'd like to work with you and get these things out to the public. And they said, well, wait a minute. We've got thousands of people employed with jobs, 9 to 5. We give them paychecks. They have to take care of their family, feed their... Where are you going to go with this? And where's your energy? You're using magnetism that's abundant everywhere? And Carr said, yeah. And as I explained briefly upstairs, he tried to explain that if you allow people to get out of servitude and go back to who and what they really are, and what they really, their passions would take them where they really need to be in life, and they could go anywhere they wanted to go, we would create mighty, mighty empires of abundance, of people that are so beyond talented, far beyond our dreams right now. Magnificent engineers, magnificent singers, magnificent artists that we're not doing now because they're saying, I can't think about this. I got to punch my time clock and I got to do this. And then I'm so tired I got to go to sleep and do the same thing over and over and over again until I die. Well, oh, okay. Well, okay, now this was 50 years ago, and the craft, did I explain upstairs how I operated the 45, how we operated the 4500? Okay, all right, I better get to that. Okay, Carr, on one of our experiments, had this 3-foot model. I had a picture of it a little while ago. Did you see it? Okay, all right. If not, I'll show it again. And I was just a technician. We had engineers, and I was just a technician, and I was learning as I went. And my qualifications with Carr, as far as Carr was concerned, was my interest in natural science and how nature operates. So I was privileged to go on to a lot of experiments and see a lot of experiments that that otherwise I wouldn't have had a chance. And one of them was this 3-foot model. And that was the same model that I showed on the screen, the exact same model. And we fired it up one day in the lab, and we got the vibratory rate. Now, I talked about vibrations. And once you get this vibration, resonant frequency up to a certain point, then you start synchronicity, if you will. You start you start becoming one with that object. And I was touching the outside of the craft, and it was T6 aluminum, pretty good grade aluminum. And I was touching it, solid, but this hum kept working, and it kept raising the hair on the back of my neck. I kept feeling really, really good, and I kept touching this thing, and pretty soon it started feeling like Jell-O, and it got softer and softer, and then pretty soon I put my hand right through it. I got right through the skin of this. And believe it or not, it was like, whoa, that's neat, but it was simple. It was like nothing to it. And part of that was in part because Carr had told us about the energy field and who and what we were. And at the moment that happened, if my brain alone had experienced that, I would have probably went crazy. They would have locked me up in a loony bin because I couldn't believe that was happening. My hand through a piece of metal? No. But my mind and my briefing from Carr said, we do it all the time. We just don't realize it. We don't recognize it. So then we went to General Motors, and they said, you put them up, we'll shoot them down. We can't have that. The insurance companies, magnets. The insurance companies alone don't want you around because you can't ever have an accident in a spaceship, no matter what. You can't crash. And there's no money in that. There's no money in what you guys are doing. So you put them up and we'll shoot them down. Well, Carr said, like Albert Einstein said, that there's a countdown now. We've got to get back. We've got to build the 45-footers up to a point where we can go over Los Angeles, we can go over Chicago, we can go over everywhere with our craft. We only had 3 of them in operation at that time. But we got to keep going until we can come out and convince people there's something there that they don't understand and they want to know bad enough that they're going to question the government, question the authorities. What is that? I know I saw something. I can feel it, and I know it's real. He said, once we get to that point, people will start questioning themselves and questioning the authorities, and we've got a chance to bring these things out. Well, we went back, and he said, we better get busy on the 45-footer. And this is the first experiment that we'd done. And because I was a technician, I didn't think I was going to be allowed to go along. But I was also a gopher. If they needed hamburgers, I'd run up and get hamburgers or whatever they needed. I was willing to be with this guy. I was willing to be with those people. They were, oh man, when you're with people that have the same passion, you just can't get away from them. So they said, okay, you're allowed to go on the first operation of the craft. And I said, the first flight, and Carr says, we're not flying anything. We're going to be teleporting. We're going to be levitating and teleporting. And I said, okay, I'm ready for that. And this was after many, many briefings and him telling us about higher consciousness and what it is and that we're energy and synergy and all that. So the day of the experiment, there was 3 of us, 2 engineers and myself, got on board, big 45-foot beautiful craft. There's a picture of it. And we got on board. Near the center of the craft, there was a quartz crystal globe right in the center in something like a gyroscope arrangement. And underneath it was a prism, a laser light coming from underneath. And it illuminated this thing in infinite colors. It went from infrared to ultraviolet all the way around, and it was just beautiful. I mean, you could take red and go all day long into the different shades and all the way around. Well, Carr said, okay, we're going downrange. We didn't have cell phones, and I don't remember or know how we communicated, but I could hear Carr. To this day, I can hear his voice. We communicated back and forth. And he said, we're going downrange about 10 miles, and this equates to what resonates at the frequency of aquamarine. You know, and not instead of green or blue or black or white, this particular spot where we were going was aquamarine in nature. And he said, all we have to do is clear your minds. Don't think of anything. Just go in and relax and watch the globe. That's all you have to do. So we got on board. He said, okay, here we go. And all we saw was the globe changing colors until it got to this brilliant, brilliant, brilliant aquamarine, and it lit up the entire inside of this craft. It was brilliant. It was beautiful color. And then it went out. And then we heard Carr say, okay, that's the end of the experiment. Come on down to debriefing. Want to talk to you. So we looked at each other and said, well, we didn't go anywhere. What's he talking about? It must have, So, well, let's go down and find out. So we went down to Carr. And we said, well, it didn't work, did it? And he said, well, it didn't work? What makes you think so? Well, we were sitting there, and all 3 of us know we didn't go anywhere. I mean, imagination or nothing, we didn't go anywhere. We just sat there, and we saw the color go bright and out. And he said, okay, I told you before about the brain and the mind, the difference. There's a big difference. And that is what we're going to talk about now. He says, we had kind of jumpsuits on, just 2 pockets on either side and a little pocket up here. He says, start emptying your pockets. Well, we weren't aware that anything was in our pockets until we started checking, and we were pulling out rocks and stones and grass and sticks and putting them on his table. We had a nice pile of junk up there on his table. And he says, didn't go anywhere? I said, no. And he said, well, how did you get all that stuff in your pockets then? And we could not, honest to God, think of a way that anybody could have come in and snuck those things in our pocket. We didn't know how in the world that could have happened. He says, that's the difference between the mind and the brain. The brain cannot comprehend that because it's beyond its optimum range of conception. But you did teleport, and we've got it on 8mm tape. We've got it documented on our instruments. I don't think we didn't have computers that I remember, but we've got it all documented. And he said the brain, after you've heard this a couple of times, will begin accepting, if you allow it, this reality to seep back into your consciousness. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's still coming back to me to this day, but it took weeks and weeks and weeks until I get flashes. Oh yeah, I remember the hatch opening. I remember us picking up rocks and everything. And when I told this story last year somewhere, somebody contacted me from Apple Valley. He was a police officer that he wrote about the jumpsuits, remember? He said that he observed the craft coming down, almost hitting him, landing. 3 guys in jumpsuits got out. They were picking up stones and rocks. They got back on board and the thing disappeared. And I said, God, I wonder if that was us. And so that triggered, I wanted to know, and that triggered my memory, and I started, day by day, I remembered more and more of the incident. Until now, it's still not totally clear, but I remember all of it happening. And Carr said, well, that's teleportation. Now, Tesla did that years and years ago at in Colorado Springs. He was teleporting things all over the place. And it has to do with resonant frequencies. Yes.
What size was the quartz crystal and what shape was it?
Okay. They all crystals, as you probably already know, are, well, this is similar to the quartz crystal we use. They're double tetrahedrons. They're like a diamond shape. And that shape is in everything that you want to look at under a microscope or anywhere you go. The molecular structure of everything has the same configuration. And it's what has been known in the past and is known to this day as sacred geometry. It's the way things are built. The neutron, in its shape alone, when put into a magnetic field, can levitate and move a craft through any environment without any effort at all. It just harmonizes with that environment and goes through it and stops and starts instantaneously. It goes beyond speed. It goes beyond time. Time is a device that we use for measuring, a starting and a stopping, a beginning and an end. And in nature, there's only infinity. It's always been and always will be. And when you grasp and can hang on to this, you don't need time. Like when I was a kid, my sister and I, or my buddies and I, would go out in the woods and we'd spend all day long, no clocks, no watches or anything, but we went by our feelings, like, well, it was time to go eat, or we're tired. It was all natural. There was no such thing as time to us when we were a kid. It didn't exist until they bought us a wristwatch and said, this is time, and then it started existing. So everything is infinite in nature. It's alpha and omega. Yes. Good question. Okay, you're talking about the one that we operated? Or the one what? Could you hear that? I'm sorry, I couldn't. Oh, well, okay. This one you're not going to believe. They're already available, and they're waiting in the wings now. They're waiting for acceptance, for all of us to stop denying, to stop doubting, to stop fearing the existence of this technology. It's real. I swear to you it's real. I've been there, done that on many, not just in the past 50 years ago. To this day and date, I'm still in that dimension. I'm still traveling back and forth through dimensions, and I know it. And that's the difference between you guys and me. And the craft that we have what's called the black ops. That's the government, and they're operating on a very, very low understanding of magnetics. They're using electromagnetics. They're using still a form of propulsion system using magnetics, but it's not the same. The ones that we operate, and you'll be seeing them soon. Within the next 2 years, you're going to see them, lots of them, and you'll know the difference. You won't have to think, is that a UFO? Because as soon as you see one of our craft, you'll feel it inside. Your intuition will say, yeah, I remember what that guy said, and you'll know it. And they're only a couple of years away. That's not very long. They levitate off the ground. They're like the Jetsons in nature. You can have your home, you can have parks, you can have tennis courts, you can have swimming pools on board. They can levitate 3 inches to 3 miles to 300 miles to 3,000 miles above any surface or around any surface. They operate in and through the earth or underwater. There's no, because of the magnetic fields. We're resonating with the magnetic fields around it. They have their own gardens on board. Grow all your own food on board. And then you have smaller craft. If you want to visit your neighbor with another spaceship over here, you just move from one ship to the other with a smaller craft. Did that answer anything? What? What? How much does it cost? Well, okay. Hey, thank you very much, brother. That's what it takes. That's the cost right there. He nailed it. The price is your acceptance. Because we've offered them for 45 years. I've been dealing in this field. I know it well as anything else. It's my primary focus. It's my passion. It's my goal. And it takes acceptance of reality versus illusion. We are creating an illusion around us daily, out of fear, out of doubt, and we're afraid to move any further than the edge of the box. But if we break through that and refuse to accept doubt and fear and move, you'll start seeing them every day. And they'll, yes. Oh, well, and we invite you and we challenge you also to raise your consciousness to that level of knowing who and what you are, and that you want a spaceship of your own, and you want your kids to have them, and you want everybody to have the opportunity. We're there for you. We're waiting in the wings now, and we've got pods all over the United States. We're even in Hawaii. I can't talk about that right now, but we've got pods that are actually in the process of waiting, not just building, but waiting for the opportunity to present this technology. Yes?
So if I set my intention that I will encounter one of your pods, and it should work?
I'm sorry.
So if I set my intention and I want to encounter one of your pods, within the next month or so, me putting that energy out there is going to attract one of the pods to me, right?
Yeah, if you set your intention to become or a part of or look into or become acquainted with one of our pods, oh, no problem. Just set your intention and it will come to you. Just be real about it. Don't have any doubts or fears, and it will happen. It's happening right now as we speak because you're talking to someone that's been there and done that.
Well, my only concern, yeah, is the fear, and I understand not to put that out there, but this is what's coming up inside me, is I read recently how the Trilateral Commission wants to use the current spaceship technology against humanity. And I'm concerned that if the pod starts showing these spacecrafts, that most of the same people in the United States are going to go to our government for answers, and they're going to give us the wrong answers. They're going to, bold-faced lie in order to try and control the
It doesn't operate in that framework. It operates the craft right now. Well, you're familiar with fan blades. The faster it goes, eventually your eyes cannot resonate fast enough to see it. It disappears. Our craft are invisible. They are invisible to the naked eye, except to those that raise their frequency, raise their retina capabilities to start bringing in the focus of reality beyond their normal conception. And when they see and know them, they're not going to go asking questions anywhere. They're going to start praying, because they're messengers from beyond, and they're coming back to the earth to give us the life that we're depriving ourselves of now. Yeah. Right. Yes. In reality, not just in your imagination turns into reality, because your imagination is reality. You are creating as you imagine. You're creating, and it'll land and welcome you on board when you're ready. Yeah.
You lived in Prescott. Did you ever hear of somebody named Paul Solar?
Yeah, we heard of him, haven't we? Paul Stolen. Stolen, is it?
Solar. I think it's S-O-L-E-N.
We know a few Pauls from Prescott, but I don't know if that was his last name or not. It looks like I'm getting tagged here. No, maybe not. Okay.
He was known for appearing in front of a group of journalists, I believe, from Prescott and other people, and flying saucers would appear around him.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know him, but I've heard of him. Yeah, sure. He does it all the time, because his job. We all have a mission, and when we find, or let's say a passion, when we find what that is, then that's what we're supposed to do. I died once a year ago in May in a hospital in Las Vegas. I was completely, totally dead. I was in intensive care for 11 days. My wife and Marcia Brown right here were with me when I died. And what I found out was there's no such thing as death. Don't buy into that. There is nothing to do. There's no such thing. It is a metamorphosis that takes place in a blink of an eye. And what that was a decision on my part. And my sister's in the audience that'll testify to that, because she's had a similar experience, that you die in an instant and you come back. And I saw the Ralph that had died in that dimension. Those doctors were calling the morgue or whatever they were doing. But in my dimension, my wife and Marcia Brown were there saying, well, you made it. You decided to come back and get your job done. If you don't get